Welcome to Hannity. We have a busy news night. We start tonight with a Fox News alert. Tonight we begin our Hannity watch on the Democrats and their radical agenda for America. Nancy Pelosi has now officially taken back the gavel, and now the hate Trump Democrats are gearing up to carry out the agenda they were hiding all during the election and we were warning you about. They want their crumbs back. They want to eliminate ICE, open borders, Obamacare on steroids. They want a single-payer system. Endless investigations. How does that help you? They want to investigate the president. And, of course, impeachment. With this, they wouldn't tell you. So here it is, day one of the new Congress. A Democrat representative has already introduced articles of impeachment. They need to read the Constitution. It would be a nice intellectual exercise for them. And the newly crowned Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, she is refusing to rule out a plan to impeach President Trump. Watch this.
Many Democrats are talking about impeachment. You've said it would be sad and divisive for the country to pursue impeachment. Are you willing to rule it out?
Well, we have to wait and see what happens with the Mueller report. We shouldn't be impeaching for a political reason, and we shouldn't avoid impeachment for a political reason. So we'll just have to see how it comes.
Do you believe the special counsel should honor and observe the Department of Justice guidance that states a sitting president cannot be indicted?
I do not think that that is conclusive. No, I do not.
So you think it's possible that special counsel Mueller could legally indict a sitting president?
Let's just see what Mueller does. Let's spend our time on getting results for the American people.
As you well know, there is longstanding Department of Justice guidance that states a sitting president should not be indicted. But it is not the law.
It is not the law. Everything indicates that a president can be indicted after he is no longer president.
Oh, after he's no longer president. Oh, okay. All these things these Trump haters wouldn't tell you during the campaign. Now they're revealing it. We were right from the beginning. And in addition to impeachment, Democrats are also preparing new legislation that demands 10 years of the president's tax returns. That's so important for your life. And you better believe they plan for a big tax cut. That's probably all imminent. There are no moderates left in the Democratic Party, which is really sad. Scoop Jackson, more conservative Democrats that want to get things done for the country, coming together, bipartisanship, I don't see it. Now, as it gets pushed further and further to the extreme radical left, watch what's going to happen. We have incoming socialists, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Rashida Tlaib. They're now joining their fellow comrade Bernie Sanders in Congress. They're planning to spend a lot of your hard-earned money. Single payer, Medicaid for all, government-funded higher education for all, a Green New Deal with massive government funding for, quote, renewable clean energy. Didn't we try that, Solyndra? Now, they're not just coming for your crumbs. They want the entire meal. But let not your heart be troubled. That's the big news tonight. This is all one big show. No bill is going to pass without the approval of the Republican Senate or the Republican president. And thanks to the president's hard work for the midterm elections, Republicans picked up seats in the Senate, and they have a solid majority. Oh, and let me make a prediction. They will never, ever, ever, in spite of all their hopes and prayers and dreams and their giddiness and their excitement and the hate Trump media is saying it, they're never going to get 2/3 of the U.S. Senate to vote to convict Trump on impeachment. Never going to happen. So they're wasting America's time and they're stopping progress. Still, none of this is stopping House Democrats from promoting a spending bill that refuses to fund any part of a wall on our southern border. $0. They were offering $1.6 billion. Now it's zero. President Trump is holding the line. He's demanding Democrats why they don't want a barrier, why it's so important, and why did they support it just, 4 short years ago? They were all sounding like Donald Trump.
You can call it a barrier, you can call it whatever you want, but essentially we need protection in our country. We're going to make it good. The people of our country want it. I have never had so much support as I have in the last week over my stance for border security, for border control, and for, frankly, the wall or the barrier. Without a wall, you cannot have border security. Without a very strong form of barrier, call it what you will, but without a wall, you cannot have border security. It won't work. You see what's just been put out on social media where thousands of people are rushing the border. Having a drone fly overhead, and I think nobody knows much more about technology, this type of technology certainly, than I do. Having drones and various other forms of sensors, they're all fine, but they're not going to stop the problems that this country has. We've never had more people wanting to come to the United States, and that has to do with the economy and has to do with a lot of other things. We're doing great as a country, but the better we do, the more people want to come in.
Here's the truth we all need to know. This is much more than politics. It's all about politics. It's also a matter of national security. The wall is just not some hallowed campaign tactic. It's something that our own Border Patrol agents are calling for, that they desperately say they want and need. But you don't have to take my word for it. Take a step back and listen to them. They're on the front lines.
I've been a Border Patrol agent for 21 years. I can personally tell you from the work that I have done on the southwest border that physical barriers, that walls actually work. You hear a lot of talk from the expert that there are experts that say that walls don't work. I promise you that if you interview Border Patrol agents, they will tell you that walls work.
We are all affected by this shutdown. We have skin in the game. However, it comes down to border security. And we're extremely grateful to President Trump, and we fully support what he is doing to take care of our nation's borders, to take care of the future of this United States. It has nothing to do with political parties. You all gotta ask yourself this question. If I come to your home, do you want me to knock on the front door, or do you want me to climb through that window?
I just want to talk about some of those criminals that Border Patrol agents apprehend on a daily basis. We're talking about murderers, rapists, people that commit very serious crimes in this country. ICE has been doing an amazing job in deporting a lot of these people back to their countries. Unfortunately, once we deport these people will not stay in their country. These criminal aliens that have been released from jail, that have been deported, will come right back into the United States. However, if we had a physical barrier, if we had a wall, we would be able to stop that.
I've been down to the border 13 times, from the Rio Grande to San Diego. I've been in the drug warehouses, helicopter, all-terrain vehicle, horseback, you can laugh, but I was, boats, on foot. I've watched gang members arrested. We have the video. Are the Democrats going to listen to the agents? Are they going to put the American people first? How many Americans need to die because we have open borders and sanctuary city and state policies before Democrats take this seriously? How long are we going to witness drug trafficking targeting our kids in small towns and big cities, or the human trafficking, or the infiltration of gangs, and even terrorists that we have identified trying to cross our border illegally and get into this country and cause us harm, before the Democrats stop playing politics? 4 years ago, they supported the Trump policy. How many billions of dollars must you, the American taxpayers, spend in deportation fees, court costs, health care, education, the criminal justice system, other social services before we start controlling immigration at our southern border? I have said this many, many times. I am certain 98, 99% of those people that want to cross the border into this country, they just want a better life. The things we take for granted, freedom, opportunity, hope for their kids, their grandkids. But we just want to do it legally. Vet them. Big wall, big door. And that's why in tonight's Hannity Watch on the border and on the government shutdown, we are calling BS on all of these Democrats' fake attempts to reopen the government. Democrats refuse to listen to the Border Patrol. They refused to listen to a security briefing yesterday with the Homeland Security Secretary, Kirstjen Nielsen. They even refused to negotiate with the president over the holidays. President Trump stayed in Washington. He didn't go down to Mar-a-Lago over Christmas, hoping the Democrats would come over to the White House and negotiate a deal. Nancy Pelosi, she was on a luxurious vacation in beautiful Hawaii, some 12 hours away, 6 hours behind the time in D.C. When confronted by NBC News, well, she said this about leaving town for vacation.
Now, you had said before the shutdown that he was being quite cavalier and that maybe the shutdown would give him more time to golf. But in the end, it was you that took a holiday.
I didn't take a holiday. I observed the Christmas holiday for a few days, and why cut in half the time I would have had with my family.
Was that a cheap shot?
But the fact, it's not. It's unimportant. It's totally unimportant. The president may not know this, but Hawaii is part of the United States of America. Maybe he doesn't realize that.
You know, over this past weekend, we lost a police officer. His name was Officer Singh. This guy was in California, and the sheriff of that county was on this show last night saying the sanctuary policies played a big part in what happened because the murderer was involved in the criminal justice system, was never deported. But Speaker Pelosi, well, the president was in the White House waiting to negotiate. You were thousands of miles away, lapping it up, life of luxury, playing politics with border security. Americans died over the course of that weekend. Americans, an American hero, police officer with a 5-month-old son is no longer on this earth providing for his child. Now, this is now day one of the Pelosi shutdown. She obviously doesn't care about DACA because the president's willing to negotiate DACA. He's willing to talk about dreamers. He's willing to put the safety and security of the American people first. Is she now doing what she's now doing? Is this in America's best interest? Is this in your best interest, your family's best interest? Seems like people only care about destroying and hating President Trump and everyone around him. Hating Trump is now their singular focus of every second, of every minute, of every hour, of every day. And of course, Pelosi's not the only adversary on Capitol Hill. On Wednesday, Democratic Congressman Hank Johnson, he actually compared President Trump and all of his supporters to Nazis. And today, Sirius XM Patriots Kerry Pickett asked Johnson about those hate-filled remarks, and he doubles down. Take a listen.
What I did was compare the times that we live in to the times that that existed at the time Hitler gained power. I mentioned the fact that he gained power through democratic elections, same way Trump did. Our right to speak, freedom of the press, due process, equal protection of the law, all of those things are threatened by the current climate of right-wing extremism.
Now, remember, this is the same genius congressman who openly worried that the island of Guam was going to capsize and tip over if too many U.S. military personnel were stationed on the island. They were going to tip the island over. That actually happened. He actually said that. And that's your Democratic Party, now in control of the U.S. House of Representatives. And, of course, Democrats aren't the only people working against the president. Even incoming Republican Senator Mitt Romney, well, he wanted Trump's endorsement, now criticizing Trump in an op-ed, causing many of his Republican colleagues to resoundingly slam the freshman senator. Now, reporter Kerry Pickett also caught up with Romney today, asked him about his rough start on Capitol Hill. Take a look.
The president endorsed you, and now you've made this op-ed. How is that not considered essentially a shiv in the back?
It's certainly an opportunity for us to work together on things where we agree. I actually said prior to the primary in an op-ed that I wrote in the Utah papers that I would work with the president on places where we agree, that where we disagreed, I'd point that out. That's the great nature of this representative democracy, which is where we agree, we come together. Where there are disagreements, we express those openly and honestly. That allows people to have trust in one another, and I look forward to being able to have a trusting relationship with the president and with others, despite differences from time to time.
All right, so 2020 is just around the corner. Romney's going to need to ask himself, well, what's better for the country? The president's pro-growth agenda, lower taxes, less regulation. Oh, we are now energy independent, literally. We are now making more oil or producing more oil than Saudi Arabia and Russia. We are, for the first time in decades, energy independent. Does he want originalist Supreme Court justices? Does he want border security? Or does he want the hate Trump media to like him? Or hate Trump Democrats? Or the hate Trump deep state, hell-bent on destroying not only the president, but a duly elected president and his administration? One such Democrat, Elizabeth Warren, has already announced her presidential bid after saying she wasn't going to run in March. Oh, I thought Democrats hate lying or, well, not remembering correctly. Take a look.
I hear the president going after you from time to time, referring to you as Pocahontas. I know recently you were speaking about your Native American heritage. Does that get under your skin when he does that? And do you want to run for president in 2020?
I am not running for president in 2020.
I thought Trump haters didn't like lying. Ooh. Now, of course, we all know this is nothing new for Elizabeth Warren today. The president, he wasted no time calling her out for her fraudulent claims of Native American heritage, posting this tweet mocking Warren's now infamous DNA test and exposing her life of lies. And even some on the left are coming after the 2020 hopeful over the debacle. For example, new piece in the Huffington Post titled, "Elizabeth Warren's Insult to Native Americans Matters Even More Now That She's Running." And they slam her for refusing to stop publicly claiming her family is part Native. Another potential Democratic 2020 hopeful, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo beginning his third term, using his inaugural address to slam President Trump, of course. Watch this.
From voting reforms to Roe v. Wade for New York, to protecting a woman's right to choose, to better gun laws, to health care protection, to legalizing marijuana, to protecting the labor movement, to a Green New Deal, to real criminal justice reform, we will make history. And New York will move forward, not by building a wall, my friends, but by building new bridges and building new airports and creating new middle-class jobs.
Maybe Cuomo should spend more time focusing on his own state, which is now home to one of the most corrupt and inefficient governments in the entire country, with New Yorkers leaving the state in droves, moving to tax havens like Texas and Florida. Pretty much a disgrace. I'm going to have a lot more on that later in the show, but it's time for tonight's Hannity Watch on the Deep State. Our own Catherine Herridge reporting House Republicans shuttering their long-running probes into the FBI and Justice Department's actions during the 2016 campaign as they hand over power, but their final findings reveal FBI divisions over the Clinton case, conflicting claims on Rod Rosenstein's comments about recording the president. Chairman Gowdy, Chairman Goodlatte even called for a second special counsel to investigate decisions made by the DOJ in the Clinton email and Russia probes and, quote, the disparate way these two investigations were seemingly conducted. Now, the House investigation also determined that high-level discussions were taking place at the FBI and the DOJ about invoking the 25th Amendment and removing the president that they didn't want elected in the first place from office, a claim that Rod Rosenstein has adamantly denied. And while House investigations are now over, Senator Lindsey Graham is picking up right where they left off. All right, joining us now with much more. Brand new book just out today. The case against the Democratic House impeaching Trump. Harvard professor Alan Dershowitz. By the way, Professor Dershowitz, I have this book, his signed copy to me. He is, right after the show, he's going to be taking part in an online signing. You can go to it, watch it, and find out more about the book at dershowitzbook.com. And I'm going over for a few minutes to say hi.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And where can people go? All I have to do is go online at the website.
And I'll sign the book right in front of them, to them, and they'll get a copy.
And if the signature is different?
It's the same. I know how to write my name. I've signed over 1 million copies of books over the years.
All right. He's bragging now. Not only he teaches at Harvard now, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
All right. I'm looking forward to that. Let's talk about this, because I'm looking out for the country right now.
Yeah.
And you know what I don't see? Anything that's going on with the Democrats that's going to help working men and women, help make us more safe and secure, make the lives better for young Americans, opportunity for them. All I hear about, hate Trump, hate Trump, hate Trump.
Look, I voted for Democrats in Congress because I want to see checks and balances operating. But I want to see the Democrats use their election to help America and to bring people together. We need border security, obviously, and we need it in a way that satisfies due process. We need health care. We need all of these things.
But Democrats 5 years ago supported a wall.
I understand that. I understand
that. Are they
that.
hypocrites?
Well, I think that's hypocritical. I think the idea of focusing on the wall, look, Israel has a security barrier.
Does it work?
They need it. It works
effectively, right?
Yeah. So I don't see any problem with that, as long as that's not the only solution we have. As you said, 98, 99% of people who want to come to this country are like our grandparents and our great-grandparents, who made America Really great.
But they went through Ellis Island.
They went through
They
Ellis
were vetted.
Island. Yeah.
They gave.
Do you know my grandmother was held in detention for a day? I found that out recently.
What
She was
for?
held in detention because her future husband, who was meeting her, the boat was a day early and he was a day late. She had
and $1 short.
20 cents in her pocket, and they kept her in detention overnight. My grandmother was a prisoner.
My grandparents were rich then. They had $10 in their pocket.
Right, yeah.
Amazing people.
Yeah.
And we all stand on their shoulders. Dan Bongino, author, best-selling author, Spygate. Congratulations on your book, former Secret Service agent. You know, I don't know how many more people have to die. Yeah. We have an opioid epidemic. Many of those drugs are funneled up through our southern border into small towns and big cities. You know from your law enforcement background. Sure. You see the human trafficking. I'm sympathetic, as Professor Dershowitz is. I don't care how many people come into the country. I don't. Can we check you out, and can you also not be a burden to the American taxpayer?
Sean, what's troubling about this is two particular things. One is the conversation always seems to revolve when it comes to liberal Democrats around the consequences of illegal immigration on the illegal immigrant. But the consequences for the American people are almost never discussed. Did you notice you mentioned this hero, this patriot, Officer Singh? Did you see the picture of his family?
Yeah,
they will never, ever see, the young child will never know his father, and the spouse, this beautiful young lady, will never see her husband again. What about those consequences? When are the Democrats going to start to focus on those consequences?
He came in legally.
He's everything right about this country.
Everything right. And I had the local sheriff and police chief on last night. The police chief could barely speak.
I watched the interview, Sean, and this is the distinction that I know you, me, and Professor Dershowitz, I don't want to speak for you, but I'm sure you feel the same way. Legal immigrants and illegal immigrants, the Democrats constantly conflate the two. We are not, let me look at the camera, we are not talking about legal immigrants. My wife is one. You are everything right about the country. We are talking about people who openly violate our laws, and this officer saying the death of this American hero is a consequence of it.
The tragedy is that...
Sanctuary cities, though, Professor, we had this guy in custody. If we followed federal law and states didn't aid and abet criminal activity and breaking the law, this man may very well be alive today.
Well, everybody has to follow the law. The great tragedy is that the vast majority of Americans, Republican or Democrat, agree on what they want as immigration policy. They want to see good people brought into the country. They want to see legal immigration. Yeah. And they want to make sure that illegal immigrants don't come in and don't get ahead of the line in front of legal immigrants. Everybody agrees on that. But the Democrats and Republicans are each playing politics with this.
How are the
Republicans?
I'm not going to let you get. How are the Republicans playing politics? The president's offering DACA dreamers a deal.
I agree with that. I think the wall has become too much of a symbol of what immigration is going to be about.
But they supported it.
I understand that, but they have to support, both sides have to support more. They have to support a reasonable
Is he not meeting him halfway
policy.
with DACA dreamers?
And look, I agree. He stayed home for Christmas, and they should have come and met him halfway. Look, what I worry about is the Democrats win, and they're going to try to impeach the president. It will be terrible for America.
All right, so right after this program, you are going to be online at, what is it called?
DershowitzBook.com.
Dershowitz.
Am I right?
Right.
You got it.
I'll be there with you.
I read the prompter.
All right, when we come back, a Hannity Watch report on the hate Trump media, Joe Concha, Rachel Campos Duffy will join us, the media's Democratic obsession, and an exclusive interview with our Secretary of State about borders, about Iran, about Syria, and everything as it involves national security. Mike Pompeo, DershowitzBook.com. See you after the show.
Thank you.
All right, time now for our Hannity Watch investigation on the hate Trump media. The liberal mainstream media pundits, they couldn't contain their giddiness, their excitement over Nancy Pelosi becoming Speaker of the House again, and the Democrats regaining the House. This is like Chris Matthews having like that Obama-Gasman thrill up his leg thing. Take a look.
It's hard to imagine how much worse things would get for the president from here.
His party will no longer have total control of the government. He will no longer have a majority in the House. And Democrats are salivating at the idea that they could eat his lunch.
No matter how many times Donald Trump tweets, no matter how much he spends his morning executive time hoovering up rails of Adderall and rage tweeting, it's not going to change where Pelosi is.
Nancy Pelosi, who is a historic figure, she's going to reclaim her position as Speaker, the most powerful woman in American politics.
She is very openly, aggressively, consciously trying to send messages to women of all parties in a nonpartisan way and of all professions, all walks of life, that it is okay to be a powerful woman.
Let us just take this moment and feel good about it and know that maybe things will get tough again tomorrow. But I just have a little bit better feeling about things right now as of this moment.
Oh, I feel so much better. If that wasn't enough, Liberal Morning Joe, he's back from vacation, calling for the 25th Amendment to be invoked against President Trump. Take a look.
If we had a House and a Senate that took their job seriously, there would be people going up to the White House this morning saying, Mr. President, questions abound whether you are fit for this office.
That's right.
If this continues, we are going to ask your cabinet to take a vote on whether you were fit for office and invoke the 25th Amendment.
Do we get to vote if people are fit to do a TV show? Just asking. Here with reaction, The Hill's Joe Concha, Fox News contributor, Rachel Compost Duffy. You see her often on Fox and Friends Weekend. Good to see you both.
Thank you.
All predictable, but this runs deeper, Joe. You know, I got Jill Abramson's comments, what I thought were pretty amazing, that the news part of the New York Times is anti-Trump. But it's more than that. I'm saying it's every major newspaper, every network, every so-called cable network. We're like an island on this show, but it's every second, minute, hour, every day. It's not news anymore. None of it's news anymore. It's activism, call it whatever you want. I'm a talk show host. They never identify themselves as such. I think it's an information crisis like we've never had in this country before.
Yes, that's true. There was a poll out last year where a majority of Americans can't name even one neutral news source. A majority can't say, oh, I could go there and find what I need. That's remarkable that you say there's an information crisis. That's true. I think what that montage showed me, you called it activism. I think it's more acting, as in bad acting. I see these pundits on all these other networks that are trying to outdo themselves. I mean, Rachel used to be on a show called The Real World, where you had each season, each cast tried to be as sensational and over the top more than the previous cast of the other season.
Trump is really, 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 really bad. No, he's really, 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 really awful, awful bad. They want, it's like a kid's game. But there's no news in it.
It's play acting. It's stage acting.
No. I disagree.
Sean, to make a point.
They hate him. This hatred is real. They wake up hating him every morning, and they want to screw him, and they want impeachment. They want the 25th Amendment. And they don't really care about the American people or what's good for the country, or they never report on the good things he's done. I'll give you a quick chance to respond. Joe.
Sure. Okay. Look, the New York Times, to get back to Jill Abramson's point, they fired their public editor. They said, oh, we'll depend on readers' comments instead. That was a big problem. But the paper of record, it's now the paper that seeks to provide comfort food to only people in American cities, only half the country, and that's a big problem. Let me give you one stat from Gallup, because this goes back to the point we were talking about before. 66% of those polled saying that news organizations are being, quote, too dramatic and too sensational in order to attract more readers and viewers. 27% disagree. In other words, 2/3 of people think that all of this is being sensationalized to bring in people through clickbait or the stuff we see on cable news. And it ain't, I know you say it's hatred. I think that's half of it, and I think half of it is also just to bring in folks by being hyperbolic and being over the top. I really believe that.
You know what the interesting irony is in all this? Is they need Donald Trump. You take away Donald Trump, they've got nothing. What are they going to do? Well, there's nobody in a fascinating way. He's the most fascinating public figure we've ever had. Highly entertaining, but also extraordinarily successful in being the great disruptor, iconoclast, who actually keeps his promises.
Absolutely. Listen, I watched the coverage today. I was not surprised to see Nancy celebrating. Her and the Democrats should celebrate. This is a big victory for them. When the media, I saw the media just giddy and salivating and just over the top fawning. It's unseemly, but guess what? It's also just as fitting. They worked just as hard as Nancy Pelosi and the DCCC to give her that gavel. They worked hard. with negative headlines, with the suppression of news, of very good news that Donald Trump had, energy independence, blue-collar recovery, minorities doing better than ever. All of these things happen, and they suppress that news in order to get this victory.
Does it help the country? Does any of what they're doing in the media help the country, Rachel?
Absolutely not. The media is served, the country is served when we have a media that just reports the facts. And right now, the one-sidedness of what has happened, the stuff that Abramson brought up herself out of her own organization, the New York Times, she even says that the American people are losing trust in the media. And what it's doing is it's empowering a lot of other sources of media.
Yeah, sure. So I think that Nancy Pelosi was treated the same way that Hillary Clinton was during the 2016 election. And what happened? She didn't win. That tells me the influence of the media ain't what it used to be. Don't worry about it.
Mike Pompeo next. Thank you both.
You can call it a barrier. You can call it whatever you want. But essentially, we need protection in our country. We're going to make it good. The people of our country want it. I have never had so much support as I have in the last week over my stance for border security, for border control, and for, frankly, the wall or the barrier. I have never had anything like it in terms of calls coming in terms of people writing in and tweeting and doing whatever they have to do. I've never had this much support, and we've done some things that, as you know, have been very popular.
All right, that was President Trump speaking earlier today during his surprise appearance at the White House press briefing. Hannity watch on the government shutdown and border security. We continue now with Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Mr. Secretary, good to see you. I see this as a massive national security issue. It deals with relations, obviously, with Mexico. It's about drugs being brought into the country, human trafficking, criminals, gang members, some people that have ties to terror. Why shouldn't we all view this as a national security issue?
Well, Sean, thanks for having me on tonight. We should all be very serious about this. I've been the CIA director. I'm now the Secretary of State. This has enormous national security implications. Border security is an important part of American sovereignty and keeping Americans safe. There is a central role to make sure that we know who's coming in and what is coming into our country. And President Trump is doing the right thing in making sure we understand what's moving across that border, and we do so with enough border security so we have confidence and we can do this on behalf of the American people.
We've been able to apprehend 3,700 people that we've identified as having ties to terror?
There's lots of risks associated. The narcotics risk itself has enormous implications for people inside the United States. There are lots of things that come across that southern border that we need to get control of, and President Trump is determined to make that happen. It includes the risk that we have terrorists come across that border.
All right, we're talking about Central America, but you've had a pretty busy year. We have the talks with North Korea, talk about denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. We have issues now with China. We also have issues with the Middle East, new alliances, opportunities hopefully emerging, certainly with Israel, with the Iranian deal being drawn back. Where do you see on the world stage, where is America different now? Because I don't think the president gets a lot of credit for a lot of progress around the world.
Oh, Sean, we have made fundamental changes in American foreign policy that enormously benefit the American people. I could tick through the same list of places that you spoke about. The previous administration had decided that the world's largest state sponsor of terror was the partner in the Middle East, Iran. We've fundamentally flipped that. We know that that is a real threat to the world and to America, and so we have developed relationships with Arab countries and Israel. We've brought them together to develop a coalition to keep Americans safe from things going on in the Middle East. You spoke first, I think, about North Korea. Lots of work that is left to be done, but I'm confident that in the next short period of time, President Trump and Chairman Kim will get the chance to meet again and truly create a much better, safer America with less threat of not only nuclear weapons being launched at us, but nuclear proliferation as well. These are real risks and real changes from the previous administration's policies.
All right, let's talk specifically about North Korea. So the president's been hinting and saying that there's going to be another meeting with Kim Jong-un. Will that be about, and will there be the potential at that meeting of the denuclearization of the entire peninsula? Obviously, missiles aren't being fired, remains have been sent back, hostages have been released, so a lot of progress. Is this where you might close that deal?
You know, Sean, I'd be surprised if we get all the way home in this meeting, although it would be fantastic if we did. I don't want to tell you exactly what our negotiating strategy is, but suffice it to say, I think we have set the conditions where we can make real progress when Chairman Kim and President Trump meet and take down the threat to the United States and to the world that has been, you know, frankly, holding America hostage for so long in North Korea. It'll be good for South Korea. It'll be good for Japan. It'll be good for all of the world.
But putting aside the Khashoggi incident, there seemed to be an emerging new alliance against Iranian hegemony, and that would be the United States, our closest allies, Israel, the Saudis, Egyptians, Jordanians, up till recently, the Emirates, against the Iranians. Do you see an opportunity, historic opportunity, where these alliances could lead to a peace that nobody could even have been thinking about 10 years ago?
Sean, undoubtedly. We have set the conditions in the Middle East where these countries are now working together across multiple fronts. You saw the president's announcement about our withdrawal from Syria. We're still going to be able to effectively, with those partners, counter the threat from ISIS in the region, and we'll do it without those 2,000 soldiers on the ground. We haven't changed our policy about continuing to make sure that there is no ISIS resurgence, and we're just going to do it in a way that is smarter and better, and we can do that because of the alliances that President Trump has built.
All right, let's talk about China in the sense they've had a massive military buildup, but your State Department issued a warning to Americans traveling to China that, in fact, they could issue exit bans preventing Americans from leaving. What's the status?
So, Sean, we didn't change the level of the warning there in China. We did change some of the language. We do our best here to constantly review things that might happen to Americans who are traveling abroad. We saw what happened with the American there in Russia. Our job is to always have Americans safe who are traveling, and we wanted to let them know that there have been more risks from what China has done in terms of folks traveling there and not being permitted to return. We just wanted to make them aware of that, and I'm hopeful that we got the language just right, so Americans will understand the risk but still travel there when it's appropriate.
Let's talk about the latest in terms of the relationships with Russia. Obviously a hostile regime, obviously a hostile actor in Vladimir Putin. Not only the United States, but other countries have experienced their cyber warfare, if you will, or their desire to create chaos in other countries. But if you can address that, and also their support of the Iranians, their influence in Syria, and do you see an Iranian-Russia-Syrian alliance that would worry you?
I am concerned about that, and frankly, the Russians' behavior has not been good. But this administration has been very serious at responding to that. Whether it was the strikes the president has taken in Syria, those were in Syria, but the Russians were all around it. Our effort with respect to what the Russians did in Skripal, the sanctions we've put on Russian oligarchs who have threatened America and American interests, those are real responses. We've done that, Sean, at the same time that we're trying to find space where we can work with them, trying to find opportunities where the Russians and American interests overlap, even if our value sets do not, so that we can work together against some of these most difficult problems. It's been tough, and Vladimir Putin has not cooperated, but we're still trying to find a place to do that.
The president has some critics as it relates to saying that he wants to withdraw from Syria and Afghanistan. Is there a timetable, or will it be based on the situation on the ground?
President's always been very clear that he wanted to get our soldiers back home. In Syria, he's made that decision, and we are working in that direction. That decision's done, and we will withdraw from Syria. The timeline will be consistent with what we can do to make sure that our soldiers are safe, that we continue the counter-ISIS campaign, that we do all that we can to keep the coalition against Iran together. Those are also things that the president's made very clear he was going to do when he visited Iraq now, a week ago. He made very clear that those were things that were also important. So we will manage those threats to America, but we'll do so without a couple thousand folks on the ground in Syria.
I wouldn't even venture a guess how many frequent flyer miles you have as a result of just 1 year. We've been friends a long time. I know how hard you're working and how much success is happening on the world stage. Secretary Pompeo, thanks for joining us.
Sean, thank you very much. Have a good evening.
He's done amazing work on the world stage, and think of all the areas of the world they're working on. All right. When we come back, we don't have a Hannity watch. Jesse and Jessica are back. They're going to weigh in on Pelosi taking the gavel, Democratic Party moving to the far left extreme, and we'll see whose world it is straight ahead. All right, time for our report. Hannity watch on the government shutdown. Moments ago, House Democrats passed a partial spending bill without any funding for the border wall that they supported funding 4 years ago. The bill is, of course, going nowhere in the Senate. But moments ago, newly elected Speaker Pelosi made this confession. She would give the president $1 towards the wall. Take a look.
Is there any situation in which you would accept even $1 of wall funding for this president in order to reopen the government?
$1? $1. $1? Yeah, $1.
Here with reaction is the co-host of the Five Waters World. He's got 2 shows. Jesse Waters, Fox News contributor.
Still just one
Jessica
show.
Tarloff. All right.
No shows. I'm just on your show.
Well, welcome. We're glad to have you.
Yeah, thank you. Happy New Year.
Things will get better for you eventually.
So, okay, Nancy thinks she's feeling it today, feeling great.
She had a pretty good day.
Oh,
Come on.
Day. Okay, so here's the point. Democrats supported a wall before. We have all of them saying they support a wall, funding a wall. But we have a dead cop, so it gets a little serious. We have other dead Americans. We have drugs literally targeting every town and every city in the country, crossing that border. We have human trafficking across the border. We have terrorists that we have stopped crossing our border that are trying to, gang members trying to cross the border, and she's talking about $1. Direct your answer to the family of Officer Singh, who died this weekend with a 5-month-old son at home, who was killed by somebody that would have been deported if the laws were obeyed and we didn't have sanctuary cities and states. Tell his family how you feel about that remark.
I feel that it's terrible. Everyone, I think,
Nancy's remark is terrible?
About the $1? Nancy's remark about the $1 had nothing to do with what happened to Officer Singh.
Sanctuary cities and states, the sheriff said on this program last night, in part caused what happened. Because we have them in custody and we don't deport them. They are aiding and abetting lawbreaking. Do you support that?
Aiding and abetting lawbreaking? No, but I do support a system in which people who are in this country illegally, and they broke the law to get here, feel that they can come out and they can work with law enforcement.
But they commit more crimes.
They don't commit. They do not
That's a red
commit more
herring.
crimes.
No. The whole thing about, oh, you got to have a sanctuary policy because people snitch and then you don't want to lock up the snitchers. If you drop a dime on another illegal and you're an illegal, they're not going to lock you up for that, okay? They're going to leave you alone.
Really?
Second of all, the minute she grabbed the gavel, she came unraveled because Trump came out, stole her thunder, came out with all the Border Patrol guys, basically called Nancy a liar. They say walls do work, Nancy, everywhere they're erected.
The story of today is Nancy Pelosi, and it is not Donald Trump. It pissed him off that she was getting all the attention, so he thought, oh, I'll walk down the hallway and I'll stand up here with my border agents and I'll try to take attention.
Is it true we've had criminal illegal immigrants that we had in custody that weren't handed over to ICE as the law provides for?
We have had some instances of that.
And they have
yes.
killed Americans?
They have.
And we have drugs. Well, drugs are crossing the border?
The numbers
and
are
human trafficking is happening across the border?
Terrible things
and gangs
happen,
gangs and terrorists are trying to get into this country?
Well, it's not
Excuse
the
me,
entire
at what point when we don't protect the border do they take the responsibility?
But the border isn't
at
open.
What point? It's wide open.
If the border isn't open, how did the guy get to California and then murder the cop?
Are you guys kidding me that you are making an argument that how many thousands of miles, 2,000, how long is the border? 2,500 miles?
Oh, more than that.
That entire thing is open and everybody is walking across.
No, it's not open. The president's actually spent $3.5 billion building the wall, but he needs another $5 billion.
He's almost done. And he started, he needed $25 billion. He makes up the numbers as he goes.
At what point, wait a minute, when the government, Jesse, of this country contributes, aids, and abets law-breaking and doesn't follow federal law and deport people who have committed other crimes beyond being here illegally, do they bear responsibility?
You have blood on your hands if you're not going to enforce the border, and men and women are dying in this country. Pelosi talks about cost. Do you know how much $5 billion out of the federal budget is? 0.1%. Let me translate it for Nancy. That's crumbs. And she can afford it. She spent money on cash for clunkers, Solyndra. A wall works. The Obamacare website that cost $1 billion didn't.
Excuse me. We had a government shutdown when the Republicans were in charge, over $3.8 billion for health care, which every single American needs in this country.
Yeah, it's working out great.
Every single American needs safety,
Democrats won in 2018 off of the health care issue.
Oh, wait.
Obamacare. What?
Okay, Obama lost 69 seats, House and Senate. Clinton lost 60. Trump picked up Senate seats and lost far fewer houses.
A bigger proportion of House seats than the GOP has in either of
It's
those
not even
elections.
close.
I can't believe you guys are taking this
You don't
day
even care about
that
DACA and Dreamers because
They
Trump
do.
offered you that deal.
Trump's deal always comes with
That
changes.
police officer had a dream, too.
Nancy Pelosi, congratulations.
Not even close.
Today was the Democrats' day, even if I lost.
Say it with me. Water's world.
2019 is already bad.
Hannity.